Today is Tuesday, 12th August 2026. Good morning and welcome to our breakfast show. Good morning, Leone. This is a program that starts your day with analysis and different views on news and current events. I am Shaku Smile.
And I am Esther Sako. Our quote of the day is from former American businessman Alex Roberts, and it says, "Character is the ability to carry out a good resolution long after the excitement of the moment has passed." I go again, it's from former American businessman Harvard Robert, and it says, "Character is the ability to carry out a good resolution long after the excitement of the moment has passed."
Coming up in this edition of the program, Good Morning, Leone, Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education officially releases the 2026 National Primary School Examination NPSC results, recording an overall pass rate of 78.2%.
Civil Society Consortium on Service Delivery and Accountability commends Parliament for passing the 2025 Constitutional Amendment Bill into law.
And also in this edition of the program, Good Morning, Leone, Advocacy for the Voiceless, Leone speaks on the Constitutional Amendment Bill.
On that note, that's how we invite you to participate in the program by sending your text message to the number displayed on the screen, or send your comments on our Facebook page, slbc.sl. The program is Good Morning, Leone, live on the Leone Broadcasting Corporation. Stay with us.
We're back, and the program you are still watching is Good Morning, Leone, live from Broadcasting House, New England Vale in Freetown. Well, as you may have heard in the news, the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, MBSSC, has officially released the 2026 National Primary School Examination NPSC results, recording an overall pass of 78.2%. A total of 164,714 candidates from 5,228 primary schools have results released to the ministry, comprising 83,718 females, 52%, and 78,934 males, representing 48%. This represents a decrease of 5,619 candidates compared to 2025, though the number of participating schools increased by 89. The highest aggregate T-score of 351 was achieved by 11-year-old Daphne Davis of Tower Hill Kindergarten and Primary School in Freetown, surpassing the 2025 top score of 346. Well, in the studios to talk more on this is the communication specialist, Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, Audra Hinda Norman. Good morning, Madam Norman. Welcome to the program.
Good morning,
Well, this one, we see the score for this year. I mean, the T score surpasses that of last year's, but however, we saw a drop in the number of pupils that starts to the NPSC. What could have been the reasons?
So there are several factors that can result to the decrease of pupils that took the NPSC exam for this 2026. Well, it could be that these pupils might have failed to submit certain requirements for the NPSC result, which includes their continuous assessment, or it could be that some of those pupils are not qualified because it is the school authorities that are sending candidates for the National Primary School examinations. However, even though there are some decrease from the number that sat last year, we saw that there are more passes from last year to this year, and we saw that the female candidate has been consistently improving with their passes as well. And we saw that the aggregate, the highest score for this year surpasses last year's.
Well, now, how could it have been that the number actually dropped? It's not about the number of people who start, because I think the essence of this free quality education, primarily, or the idea behind it is to increase school enrollment. So if there is a drop, in the number of people taking exams, it means, you should explain, what really might have led to that. What happened? What actually happened? But this drop actually happened, and then we saw a drop in the number of pupils that actually starts to the NPSC this year.
So I can tell you that we have schools that when it is time for the numbers to be counted, and when it is time for pupils to be counted for the NPSC examination, we'll see a lot of schools, they're bringing a lot of pupils, their numbers will increase. But when it gets to the examination, the day for the examination, we'll see that there will be a huge amount of decrease of absent pupils. So as a ministry, we have been investigating that as well, because when it is time for data, we see a lot of pupils, their names are on their list, and the school will send, these are the amount of pupils we have for this year's NPSC. And the day for the examination, we see absent pupils. So this is something that is also contributing to the decrease of the number of pupils from last year to this year. And we too are keen into that. We are interested in the reason why there are absent pupils in this public examination, and we as a ministry, we are investigating that.
So, Madam Inga Norman, you can agree with me that over the years, most of the top candidates that we have been having are from private schools. And the government is pushing for free quality education, and we hardly see government schools coming up, topping the charts when it comes to be it NPSC, BECE, and even the worst exam. What has been the efforts of the Ministry of Education in tackling that?
So, because the top results are coming from private school, does not mean that the government schools are not trying, or the free quality education is not having an impact.
But before now, we see government schools topping the chart.
Yeah, we saw them topping the chart. So my point is, we cannot just set aside the fact that government schools are doing well, and we cannot just ignore the fact that we are trying with the free quality school education. There are improvements. We have teachers, we have SQUAM officers who are monitoring the pupils, monitoring the teachers to ensure that they go in line with the ministry's guideline, with the syllabuses that we have set aside for those pupils. So while I appreciate the concern of every other Sierra Leonean asking the question, why the private schools are topping the chart when it comes to public examination, however, as a ministry, we are investing in the government schools, we are investing in free quality educations, and there are much more passes too in the government schools.
So I saw something scary, because while listening to the minister, he made mention that over 1,000 results were seized. What could have been the reason for that? Because we only hear about results being seized for WAS students, and now we are hearing primary school pupils taking the NPSC, the results are being withheld. What are the reasons for that?
So there are two reasons the minister gave while releasing the result. First is the failure of the school authorities to submit the continuous assessment of the pupils. So one of the policies for WAEC is that the school authorities should submit their continuous assessment before the stipulated time for the NPSC exam. So that is one reason that you see a the 1,927 season result. And another reason is that they are suspected examination malpractice. So these are cases that we are looking into, and when due processes are followed, we'll come back to the media and to the public to give them an update.
Well, now that I saw this name, and I know the Tower Hill kindergarten. No, it's a government school, eh?
No, private
It's a private school. Okay, there's a school at Tower Hill.
Yeah.
I thought that was the school, but then now I've come to know that it's actually a private school. Now, when actually do you see, because government is investing a lot in this pre-quality education, but then year in, year out, we see private school topping the charts. How will this be made better? We now see public schools really performing, because if you look at the budgetary allocation to free quality education, the results are supposed to be telling all the lies. So when we actually start to see the government schools, government assisted schools, topping the charts in these exams.
So the ministry has introduced several principles and policies to ensure that the government and government assisted school also key into topping the chart. We have a foundational learning for pre-1 to pre-5. This is a basic foundational learning skills for people to build them up before they take the National Primary School examination. These are subjects that will open their mind and their ideas to help them to think critically in answering questions, to ensure that they go into this examination prepared with the questions they will meet in there. And we also have syllabuses, we have trained teachers, we have SQUAM officers, we have SQ officers. These are people who go to these government schools, government assisted schools, to monitor them, to ensure that they go in line with what we are doing as a ministry, to ensure that they follow our syllabus, our written principles, just to make sure that these kids are well equipped for the examinations. And we as a ministry, we are committed to making sure that these pupils we see better results. They are good results.
But do you also, Mr. Norman, do you also monitor, for example, teacher pupil ratio? Because that also is one thing that is posing a big challenge to education, or to comprehension, as the case may be. You go to certain schools, you see the number of pupils, you see the teacher, then you start to think when really these pupils are comprehending, or they are really getting what they are supposed to get to face exams. So do you also monitor teacher pupil ratio
over the years,
in these schools? Over
the years, we have been monitoring, and I can assure you that with the start of the 2026-2027 academic year, the ministry, the National Free Quality School Education, myself and some stakeholders will be going to these schools, not only in Freetown, across the districts, to ensure that we have teacher pupil ratio, to ensure that pupils are guided, to ensure that the teachers, the school authorities, they go in line with the policies of the Free Quality School Education. This is our path. This is something we have been doing as a ministry over time, and we are committed to doing it. And we are confident that these issues of government school not topping the charts, the teachers pupil ratio, these are issues that we are looking into, we are addressing.
But do you see value for money here? As part of the big five game changers, I know human capital development stands very, very tall. It stands up in all government programs and projects. But in the area of education, taking into consideration the amount of money government is spending on education, do you see value for money?
Yes, I can tell you that we are seeing a lot of improvement when it comes to FQSC. From its implementation onto the stage, there's been a lot that has been happening. We are seeing that the investment the government is putting into it has not gone unnoticed. We are seeing the results, we are getting the feedbacks, we are seeing the impact. So we are just open for more. However, we are not complacent. we are ambitious that we can do more by 2030. We can do more. We can do more as a ministry and even as a country when it comes to improving education inside.
So, Madam Normal, now most of the time when we see private schools topping the chart, what comes to mind is that these private schools have access to the adequate teaching and learning materials. And we have been hosting members from the Student Teachers Union. It has been a concern that over the years the ministry has not been giving them teaching and learning materials. So imagining an environment where there is no teaching and learning materials, these teachers have to squeeze from their own pocket to make these materials available. Do you think government schools can be able to top the charts when there is unavailability of the teaching and learning materials in the schools?
So we understand the concerns of the Teachers Commission, and we know that there are few hookups here and there. However, like I said earlier on, we have been making use of what we have as a ministry to ensure that these kids get the quality education that we have promised them. We have been making use of the little things. Just a few weeks ago, the minister unveiled and handed over motorbikes to the school quality assurance officers. These are people who also are part of the FQSC to monitor, to ensure that things are going well. So we are starting. It is a process, and we get to that place that we can say, all right, we have completed this, but it is a phase, and we are taking it bit by bit. And we understand that there are existing hookups and challenges. The ministry is committed to covering those holes and ensuring that everything gets better per time.
So something that has been eaten into the fabrics of educational system has to do with examination malpractice. You can agree with me that if it's now even on primary level, when there is NPS, you see there have been concerns by these school monitors that when monitoring the examinations, they see exam malpractice here and there. What has been the effort of the Ministry of Basic Education in ensuring that you tackle this issue of examination malpractice? Because now it's now in the primary school. Before now we used to hear it maybe in Worst and Becker, but now imagine pupils in primary 6 have been exposed to examination malpractice.
So the ministry is not responsible for examination malpractice. We are not the ones giving out these questions and the papers to the school authorities. So what we have been doing over time, we have school quality assurance officers. So for the just concluded Becker exam, I was out with a team together with the head of the school quality assurance officers. These are officers who are stationed in the different sectors where these public examinations are being taken, to ensure that there are no examination malpractice whatsoever, to ensure that the exams are smooth, to ensure that the exam have trust and integrity. So what we did for the just concluded Becker, we saw that there were military officers at the centers, at the examination centers. So just to ensure that we curtail examination malpractice, this is our own part. This is what we have been doing. This is the part that we have been doing as a ministry. So we are not responsible for examination malpractice, but we are aware that examination malpractice is eaten deep into our educational system. So that's why these measures are being put in place to ensure that it is stopped, it is still not done.
But then now, although Mr. Alfonso Manley is here to talk about something else, but then he is also a stakeholder in education. Yes, so you cannot come here and he's not asked certain questions insofar as education is concerned. All of us know yesterday, no less a person from Minister of Education, Basic Education, Congress Saki, released the 2026 NDSC results. And this morning, Alfonso Manley, who happens to be the executive director for the Civil Rights Coalition, and also somebody, a stakeholder in the education sector. Now, what do you make of yesterday's results, in terms of percentage of those who made it, the number of people who start to the exam? Because according to what we've now come to realize is that there was a law in the number of people who start to bat MPS. But then the T-score for this year surpasses that of last year's. That is a plus. But at the same time, there was this decrease in the number of pupils who start to not exam. But in general, just give us a general overview of what you think about the results, the NPSC, the 2026 NPSC results.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning. Firstly, it's normal for the Minister of Basic Education to announce examination results, especially for NPSC. It's normal. Secondly, the NPSC is a local exam. Government through the ministry can determine when this exam should be conducted, can communicate to WAEC. We also know that government is paying for the kids 100%. All those kids in government and government assisted school, government is paying for them. But the ministry have a responsibility, and this is where I have a problem. The ministry employs those SQ officers so for quality assurance. For instance, it is their responsibility to engage primary school head teachers to ensure they submit CAS. How do you allow schools to write exam without head teachers not submitting CAS?
In fact,
No, let me go.
No, I think in this case, a few years back, I know you are always talking about education. A few years back, when it was to talk about CAS, what was largely discussed was WASC. You know, it didn't go down to NPSC or BK, for example. No, and yes, most of the talks we are on.
Yes,
on,
because
on
WASC is critical. It's an external exam, and you're using the portal system. Once you've not submitted CAS 1 for WASC, you cannot access the portal to submit for CAS 2, 3, and the PRS. When you submit for CAS 1, the system generates what is called reference number. With that reference number, you can able to access the system for CAS 2. Unlike NPS, it's a local exam. It's a local exam. Even after the examination, where there are proper coordination, schools can be asked to submit their CAS for the kids. It is the kids who are now suffering. It is the parents who are the limbos. It has never happened. It has never happened.
So
no, let me come, please. It has never happened in the education sector. We told over 1,000 results. Pure carelessness. Pure carelessness. We must blame the ministry for this. We must blame NACOT for this. They have to take responsibility. Who employs those principals? Those head teachers? It is the ministry through Teaching Service Commission. They're supervising Teaching Service Commission. So when once, because they have the records, they have the data, I'm a part of the group, the forum, how they submit, they update us. So you know that for 1,000 or more pupils, CAS have not been submitted. What have you done? Before the announcement of the results, what have you done? That's the point. What have you done? It's a local exam. We can submit CAS even after the exam. Yes, it's a local exam regulated by government policies, not WAEC policies international. Only for us.
I think we need to talk about this withholding. Withholding of results.
With the CAS, with the submission of CAS. Now, for the next coming NPSC results, the ministry has ensured we have told the school authorities to produce their CAS. Tomorrow is the deadline for the next academic NPSC. So we as a ministry, we have been engaging these school authorities to ensure that they produce their CAS on time.
But this CAS is huge. It's a problem.
And even with this 1,997 results, we are saying that when due processes are followed, when these CAS are released, and we have engaged the school authorities, some of these results will be released back to the school authorities and the pupils. But we need to do the right thing. We need to do it appropriately.
Who supervises them? Who supervises them?
So we have.
How soon do we get to see this?
Who supervises them?
There are processes to follow. When we follow these processes, we get the results. We as a ministry, we are not happy that these results have been seized. However, we should follow process. The ministry has been playing its part over the years to ensure that these school authorities produce the CAS on time.
Yeah.
Disciplinary actions have been taken and is going to be taken for the coming years as well.
So what happens now, Madam Leone? What happens now to the people who are in transition? Because they are transitioning from primary to secondary school, right?
To junior.
So to the junior secondary school, and these results are now being withheld. So what happens to them insofar as organization is concerned for these pupils?
So for this withheld result, this 1,127, we have to go through due process.
So how soon will that process be?
I do not want to tell you how soon. I do not want to tell you the date, the exact date. The only thing I'll tell you is that we are working on it.
Do you know there's a school calendar?
We understand
and they are supposed to be in junior school in
By
September. So now we have about 1,000
the
results.
ministry will come back and inform the media and the public that this is what we have done and this is what we are going to do.
Firstly, I will not blame the minister for this. It's not the fault of Conrad. I know about the ministry very well. I've been working for a very long time. It's not Conrad. There are people in the ministry who should take responsibility. You see, you spoke about malpractice, examination malpractice. The ministry themselves, they are involved in this malpractice. We are monitoring exams. We are seeing them. As reported,
How can you say? So what's the evidence?
You are saying
yes.
Now
Let me justify.
accusing the ministry of being involved in examination.
And this is not the first. I've been saying this even in front of the minister.
Can we have evidence?
They have it in the ministry. Go and actually.
Let us keep it civil, please. Let us keep it civil. Let us keep it civil.
But that's a serious allegation.
Let me explain.
No, let us keep this conversation civil. Now, you are saying that it is not really the minister who is responsible.
Yes.
But then the buck stops on his desk.
You allow me to explain.
He said the minister is not the one to blame. There are people in the ministry who are doing some joint criminal enterprise or what have you. But the thing is, for example, yes, he is the minister. If there are people who are doing things that are not really helping situation, then he must be held accountable as well. Not only those who are working under him. Don't you think so?
Are you allowing me to respond to your question?
That is it. Well, you have to respond.
Firstly, the Ministry of Education is a technical ministry. The minister cannot do the job of some of the directors. They have the responsibility to do their job. Now, ACC have called several meetings with the Ministry of Basic Education. They produces evidences. Why? Ministry, security apparatus, most of them are involved in exam malpractice. Now, when you say ministry, all teachers and principals, they are part of the ministry.
But all I saying, the ministry is not responsible for examination
She's
malpractice.
new. If I had to go to the ACC, me and the minister, we have been discussing this. Come and know what I'm talking. She's new. I don't want to go into all of this. She's new.
But I can tell you.
No, but you are not in the ministry.
Let's talk on the
The issue is the ministry that are involved in malpractice. Period.
Let him make his statement.
They are involved in malpractice. Yes, exam malpractice. I'm saying it out all
You mean the
confidence.
ministry? Alfonso.
That's a huge allegation, Alfonso.
I am saying the Ministry of Basic Education
is involved.
They are involved in this exam malpractice.
Examination.
Yes.
But then, what do you have evidence to that effect?
Yes. Now, when we monitor the exam, write a report to the ministry, we sit and discuss with them. And this is not the first time I am saying this. I have said this before the minister and various panel. Even when you have the civic day civics, 2 years now, I'm part of the panel.
How does that happen?
So firstly, before examination have 3 phases. Pre, the exam itself, and post. Before exam, people coordinate with principals. So parents pay more. Parents have been reporting this.
How does that?
I don't want to be interrupted. You are not asking the question, okay? I don't want to be interrupted. Now, examination malpractice, as I'm saying, the ministry is involved. All of these evidences, I'm part of LEG. After exam, 2 years ago, ACC called all of us. They presented all the evidence. Even phones they took from pupils. They watch the communications. Teachers are involved, principal. Many people that are involved in this. And I have had discussion with the minister. He knows this. This is why I started. I don't want to say it in public. But the minister is now taking steps. He's now taking positive steps that I know of. He knows this. This is why I won't blame him for this 1,000 and more people, because I know what is obtaining in the ministry. I will not blame the minister. And in some of these, they are duplicating the names of pupils. For instance, they will enter a particular pupil name in this school. These same people, they will enter that pupil name in another school.
So those are the responsibility of the school heads, not the minister.
Thank you. So and secondly, the last was mark you the minister. They say they should sign what you call a form, a memorandum of you call the form a guarantee form. To say that if 2% of your pupils absent, you will take the responsibility. Because the minister has found out that they've been duplicating names. One particular people, St. Anne's, St. This,
who are doing these duplications?
You are journalists. What I'm
saying, the thing is that you said you made a very huge allegation here.
Yeah.
And the Ministry of Education is also involved in examination and practice.
I've been saying this.
Now,
it's not
the thing is that, okay, yes, we agree that the Ministry of Education is the supervisory ministry for teachers, for schools, as the case may be.
Yeah.
But it is also, could mean that they are not the ones. They don't know what is happening in these schools. The school heads are the ones who are taking upon themselves, to do some of the things they are doing, not the ministry.
So, firstly, I want to repeat, and I'm saying this, and I'm on air, and this is not the first time to say MBSSC. Some staff that are involved in exam malpractice. Period.
So, this is a serious allegation by Alfonso. What would you say with regards to what happened? Because he has been reiterating the same statement that some members of your staff at the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education have been actively involved in examination malpractice.
One thing I can tell you, Esther, is that as a ministry, we have been playing our part to curtail examination malpractice. Over the years, we have seen the efforts made by the minister, the ministry, the directors and coordinators to ensure that examination malpractice is reduced. The just concluded Becker, like I stated earlier on, I was there with the team. We monitored. We ensured that these people take the exam with integrity.
But a few minutes before Alfonso came, you stated that the ministry is not directly responsible for examination malpractice.
We are not responsible. We are there to ensure that we curtail examination malpractice. If a pupil is spying in school, or during examination malpractice, or during national examination, it is not our role.
So now allegations are coming up that your members of staff are involved.
Well, that's why
you plan on investigating.
That's why I told you that we
are investigating
in place. So this is a work. This is something that we are going to do. It's a process. Examination of malpractice is an ever-ending fight, but we are committed to ending it. We'll continue to fight to ensure that it is reduced, it is curtailed. We are working towards that as a ministry.
But the thing is that education malpractice is a joint criminal enterprise. It is not done by one man or by one sector. Somebody has to cooperate from the other end for it to happen. Now, some of these lapses, or loopholes, how do you seal them to ensure that, yes, we know that it is very, very difficult for education malpractice or examination malpractice to be eliminated, but it can be reduced. You understand? So, what are the strategies? I know that strategies are mostly largely not disclosed. But then, what do you intend to do to kind of, give back the credibility that the ministry deserves?
So while there are pending strategies, the one I will tell you is the one that we did for the Becker. There were military officers that were at the examination centers to ensure that there are no examination malpractice. Some of them were down where the papers were, and the other was up with the pupils with plain cloth, so the pupils will not be afraid when they see these military officers. These are all measures we put in place to ensure that the kids do not get afraid in examination hall, and at the same time we are able to monitor them. So the school, the ministry, the minister, the coordinators, the directors, we often do school monitoring. We pay unannounced visit to the schools when the exams are ongoing. These are all ways that we have been putting, and these are all strategies to ensure that we contain. Like I said, we are committed as a ministry to end examination malpractice. We are going to play a part and we continue to play a part.
Okay,
Right.
Thank you very much. She is the communication specialist at the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, Olga Inganoma. As yesterday, the Minister of Basic Education announced this year's NPSC results. Well, we take a health tip of today, and today we look at the difference between vertigo and dizziness. When dizziness strikes, the ground seems to fall out from under you, but vertigo is a specific type of dizziness that makes the room spin. What causes these symptoms and how long do they last? Let us watch the name.
Feeling off balance is really uncomfortable, especially if you're not sure what's causing it. Is the room spinning? Or are you feeling off center? Let's talk about the differences between vertigo and dizziness. Dizziness describes an overall feeling of being lightheaded, unsteady, or faint. It's caused by dehydration, low-headed, unsteady, or faint. It's caused by dehydration, low blood pressure, low blood sugar, anxiety, inner ear problems, and other common occurrences. Vertigo is a more specific type of dizziness, though. With vertigo, there's a sensation of movement, almost like you or the space around you is spinning. It's like being on a very fast merry-go-round. No matter what you do, you feel like you're spinning out of control, even when you lay still. Vertigo is commonly caused by inner ear disorders, like benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, or BPPV. But vertigo can also be caused by neurological disorders like migraines or stroke. Both dizziness and vertigo can be mild to severe, but dizziness tends to be less intense. And while both of these conditions can be brief or ongoing, vertigo tends to come on in episodes and may last up to several hours or even days in some cases. Sometimes these conditions can go away on their own, but they often require treating the underlying cause. If you experience persistent spinning, have trouble walking, or have severe headaches, chest pain, or ongoing unexplained symptoms, seek medical care right away.
We're back, and the program you are still watching is Good Morning Leone, live from a broadcasting house in England Video in Freetown. Now, Esther, it has been quite has been an interesting debate.
Alfonso was actually here to talk on the constitutional amendments.
But the thing is that you can use a stone to catch many birds.
Exactly.
And that is exactly what we've done.
So we move on with the program. As the members of Parliament from Spain's main opposition Orthodox Congress walked out of Parliament on August 10, 2026, protesting a vote on the constitutional amendment bill that they argued failed to meet the required two-thirds majority threshold. Opposition leader Honorable Abdul Kagbo led 49 APC lawmakers out of the chamber after a 96-41 vote rejecting a proposal to establish a search and nomination committee for appointing electoral commissioners. The APC argued on the section 108B of the 1991 Constitution that constitutional amendment required a two-thirds majority of all members to pass. Speaker of Parliament, Honorable Sengepo Solomon Thomas, and ruling SLPP lawmakers countered that the simple majority rule under Section 91 applied because the vote concerned a specific clause rather than the entire bill. The Speaker further said he will refer the matter to the Supreme Court for interpretation. But what does the civil society activists make of this? The Consortium on Accountability and Service Delivery has, in a press release, commended the Parliament for passing into law the 2025 Constitutional Amendment Bill, describing the development as an important step in strengthening salient democratic and constitutional governance. As part of the observations and recommendations, the Consortium has outlined the following: condemnation for due process, and the Supreme Court must be given the opportunity to clarify the constitutional question, and called on the Supreme Court of Ceylon to give the matter speedy consideration and provide the necessary constitutional interpretation within the bounds of its judicial mandate, among others. Well, for these and more, including comments on the APC walkout from Parliament, we have been joined in the studio by the National Coordinator, Civil Rights Coalition, and a member of the Consortium, Alfonso Mandi. Good morning and welcome to the program, Alfonso.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
So, as a civil society activist, we saw what transpired in Parliament on the 10th of August. What do you make up of all of this?
Yeah, thank you very much. Firstly, we took part in the process. Both the late Justice Kawa Constitutional Review Committee, I attended over 100 programs all over the country. By then, I was serving at the Youth Commission Board, representing male youth in that board. So I was given the opportunity, to traverse around the country in those deliberations. And in those deliberations, all of them were recorded. Where we got it wrong, and I told the AG, before presenting, this constitutional amendments bill, or before going for that legislative hearing, they should have popularized once again the Kawan recommendation. Because in the Kawan recommendation, it is clearly stated that we have agreed for a PRS system. It is in that document. It is in that document. All of us have agreed that the 55%, because I'm just discussing the bone of contention they had in Parliament, because they agree on all other issues, the dual citizenship, right, issue of independent candidate for presidency, and so I don't want to deal with those issues. I want to deal with those contending issues, what to make of it. All of us have agreed that the 55% threshold is high. When they went for the tripartite, I always say we are not there. It was the international community, the SLPP, APC. Other political parties were not there. In that deliberation, they said they agreed to lower the threshold. In fact, they agreed to 25%, I think it's half of the district or two-thirds. And when the AG presented the bill for the pre-legislative hearing, it was 20% in two-thirds of the district. So that was the bone of contention. But as civil society, what to make up of the process? Firstly, we want to commend Parliament. It's been a very long process, especially the Speaker. And I'm happy the Speaker referred to the Supreme Court. But again, I listened yesterday to some senior lawyers. They are saying the Speaker decision is final. The reason why the Speaker referred to the Supreme Court may be to satisfy all of us, to say what the way he quoted the Constitution, because you cannot interpret, you cannot make the law and interpret, the way he quoted the Constitution is right. So he refer for an interpretation to the Supreme Court. Secondly, walking out of Parliament doesn't make sense to us anymore. No one has scored any political gain walking out of Parliament. Stay there, discuss, you lose the debate or you win the debate, then you know you've represented your people.
But Parliamentary boycott or parliamentary, walking out of Parliament, it's part of the. It is not unparliamentary. It is parliamentary.
So I did not say it's unparliamentary. What I'm saying is not fashionable. Your voice should be heard. This is why you're in Parliament. And let me quote the former president. He said this. I think it was 2012 after the election. So when you continue to boycott, your people will boycott you one day. So we not see boycotts as something that's fashionable.
Seen as a protest.
No, not for critical issues like this one.
But they have their concerns as a party.
So I, as a citizen who they also represent, I'm giving my opinion and my views, for which I'm entitled to. We are saying boycott is not fashionable in modern day democracy. Stay there, debate on your grounds. You can abstain when it comes to voting, but don't walk out. A senior member of the APC too reiterated the same yesterday. I was listening to that person in one of your sister, a TV program. He said the same. A senior member outside the APC in Parliament. So he could stay, you abstain from the voting, but walking out is not fashionable again. It's not fashionable. So we are saying, one, we commend Parliament for this. Two, the Supreme Court is in a press release to interpret what the Speaker referred to them. And thirdly, for His Excellency to give an assent to this, because this electoral reform, this is just the beginning. There are a lot of reforms that is going to take place in CSL.
So unfortunately, you are indirectly supporting the proportion.
Not indirectly, I'm directly supporting, yes. Yes, because when we did the Kawan recommendation, those consultations, it was clearly stated in the report, Kawan's report.
But there are big concerns that the PR system does not open the political space.
So what we say, when I was at Bintumani, I did a presentation for the PR system. Now listen, our own recommendation. One, lower the threshold. 11% is too high. Bring it down. 11.9 is too high. Bring it down to about 5%. That's one. Two, we don't want the closed list PR system. We want an open list wherein your party members can scrutinize, including community members. And thirdly, let's say Freetown is one district. After the elections, right, we have about maybe say 16 MPs in Freetown. Allocate them, say from Wellington to Kisi, Honorable X, you are responsible. Anything about Parliament, talk to this Honorable. From Kisi to Upgon, Honorable B, you are responsible, irrespective of which political party. So people were able to discuss with members of Parliament when there are issues in their community, and this is our recommendation. And this is the kind of PR system we want.
The concerns as in the PR system makes these representatives answerable to their own party and not to their community.
So what are the advantages? For instance, it is only the PR system that will actually guarantee women this 30% quota. Before now, when it was debated in Parliament and parliamentarians were asked to have a safe seat for women, say example constituency 110, you know what I'm saying? Hey, who's speak constituency? No. So the safest way for women like you.
So it's the PR system that guarantees that, because
when you submit the list,
we already have the GIWI bill that makes provision for that.
How does it?
30%.
So how does it make provision for you to be elected in Parliament? Please enlighten me. The GIWI Act. How does it make provision for women to enter in Parliament?
No, but the thing is that it is now.
How does it make provision for women?
No, it does.
How?
Now, the GIWI bill. Now, I think your argument is that the Apex law, it should be factored into the Apex law, which is the Constitution. You understand? That is probably your argument. But
no, that's not my argument.
But the thing is, now, insofar as the GIWI bill is concerned, Act is concerned, I'm sorry, it does make provision for women, participation in the parliamentary system.
How do we ensure the participation in Parliament?
Okay, ensure that if, for example, you are presenting the list, the list system, make sure you place women on vantage.
And that system is the PR system.
Position.
And that system is the PR system. And that system is the PR system. So when it's constituency, members of parliament do not want to say this my constituency is for women. So they don't want it. They refuse it. So the only safest way, Sheku and Esther, is the PR system. So they can tell now when you submit this first, second, third. At least the second should be. Oh, woman, thank you.
So Alfonso,
you guarantee their 30%.
Also, the recommendation.
And secondly, the other advantage of the PR system. Okay, may their souls rest in peace. Those honorable whom we have lost on both sides, they've been replaced seamlessly. I didn't be there was going to be by-election for those replacements. Cost the state money. Security concern, it will disrupt education, all of it.
Alfonso, there were consultations done by other civil society organizations with regards to the kind of system that the people of Sierra Leone would want to use to vote in elections. And we heard from the president that the will of the people should be placed in front instead of their party. But most of the consultations that were done, there were calls for a hybrid system. And now the bill that was passed saying it should be a PR system.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I said it here that what the AG should have done is to popularize the Kawan recommendations so people reflect back their minds so that they know that this issue of PR system is not the making of the SLPP government, because this is where they are looking at SLPP say, well, people are saying no, PR system is for SLPP, the first part, it is not. No, let me come please, it is not. When you popularize that document, it will refresh the mind of people. Then people will know that this issue of PR we are talking about, it was recommended by the late Justice Kawan based on the consultation.
We have progressed, we have moved past that. Let us now talk about, what happened in Parliament. Now, the argument here is that, insofar as the opposition is concerned, the 1991 Constitution has been bastardized. According to them, that for you to amend the Constitution, whatever amendment, it has to be 2/3. Now, the opposition argues that two-third majority, wasn't there at all. That did not happen. That is the argument now. That the procedure used, to pass that bill was incorrect. According to them, it is unconstitutional, but the Constitution itself has been bastardized. Quoting the speakers quoted 91.
Yes,
91. And the opposition is also now quoting 80. 108. 108. Yes, 108. And 108 says, for you to amend any part of that Constitution, it has to be by 2/3. And the speaker is saying no. In fact, 91 says by simple majority. So that is where the conflict is right now.
So good. Entirely, I mentioned it that we want to hear from the people. But let me use SLPC as an example. SLPC is a family. If there are issues in this family, brother can say his own, sister, auntie, but when the dad or mom comes in to say ABC, that's final. So let's look at the House of Parliament. I rely on what the speaker says because he's the head of the house. If you want to challenge it, you can go to the Supreme Court. But I told you, I had one senior lawyer yesterday was saying the speaker's decision cannot be questioned. That's what I had, and I'm not a lawyer. No, so all of us are happy because this matter is being referred.
That Parliament regulates itself.
Yes. But
so whatever comes out of Parliament, now the Supreme Court, that is why the Speaker presides or chairs Parliament, but then he doesn't interpret Constitution. The only body that has the mandate, so far as separation of powers is concerned, is the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And that is where he has referred this.
And some people are again saying he should not refer this matter to the Supreme Court because his decision is fine. But what we are saying, firstly, we are happy about this process. We want to encourage the opposition to continue to debate and refrain from boycotting. Stay, hold your grounds. If it comes to voting, you can abstain, but don't walk out of parliament. It's not even good for our kids. That's the point we are making. It's your right not to vote, but stay in your seat.
But do you expect the Supreme Court to decide otherwise?
Well,
to interpret
we want to listen from the Supreme Court. I don't want to preempt. I will not want to preempt.
Okay,
we want to listen and learn from the Supreme Court because they have the ultimate authority to interpret. Parliament can make the laws, but they cannot make laws and interpret it. And mark you, when you say a bill, there are stages. First of all, you publish. Second, you gazette twice. Go for first reading, second reading, committee stage, third reading, and you pass that.
You need an exclusive interview on this.
We follow the process anyway.
You need an exclusive interview on this. Time is not out.
We follow the process too.
So he is the national coordinator for the Civil Rights Coalition and a member of a consortium. Alfonso Mane taking us to the constitutional amendment bill. Now quickly, we still have the communication specialist from the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education. Now for those over 1,000 results that are withheld, how would you assure parents of these pupils that the results are withheld, that the ministry will speedily look into the matter so that they can see the results?
So as a ministry, we sympathize with the pupils and the parents, and I want to say that we assure them, we are committed to making sure that these cards are released and we follow the due process. And when everything is settled, we release the result to the school authorities so these kids can see their result and prepare for the next academic year.
All right, thank you so much. And she is Olga Norman, and she is the communication specialist in the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education. Earlier we heard Alfonso Mane, the Executive Director of Civil Rights Coalition. Well, that is how we say goodbye. It has been Good Morning, Sierra Leone. Came to you live from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation Television. Many thanks to the entire production, especially producer Kamara. I am Sheku Smile.
And I am Esther Sako. Quickly take a quote of the day, and it's from former American businessman Cabot Robert, and it says, "Character is the ability to carry out a good resolution long after the excitement of the moment has passed." Good morning, Sierra Leone. Returns tomorrow. We'll stay glued to your public service broadcaster, the SLBC, if you can. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.
As a mother of the house, whenever I want to prepare palm soup, there's no need pounding palm fruit. All I need is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. My soup is done, and its preparation, it is not difficult at all. Nkulenu palm soup base, it's easily done with no difficulties. Just take few ladles and your soup is done. And its flavor, it's amazing. This is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. And this is Nkulenu's Ghana's original spiced palm soup base. Iron fruit and turkey berries are naturally added.
Also available Brown Gold Natural Cocoa Powder, Sunny Gold Brown Sugar, Neat Fufu Flour, Shito, Pisa, and Moringa. All available at Nyami Ado Enterprise, 1 Lower Waterloo Street, Freetown.
Nkulenu palm soup base.
Ghanaian original taste.